There you go.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regular council meeting for Monday, December the 14th. This meeting is being recorded live and is streaming on the District of Summerland YouTube channel at youtube.com District of Summerland. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available to the public for viewing, electronically or as a written record. Members of the public may access the meeting or participate in the following ways, and this has changed. 1, watch the meeting live or recorded. Individuals who wish to watch the meeting may view it on the District of Summerland YouTube channel, live or recorded. 2, register in advance to speak during the meeting. Members of the public who wish to comment during the public comment opportunities found under items 6 and 9 are asked to register in advance by contacting the corporate officer at corporateofficer@summerland.ca with the following information: your name, your civic address, your street address, and the method of participation, whether you're going to be phoning in or coming in onto the Zoom. Further details will be provided to you when you register. The third way is to request to speak during the meeting. Those who have not registered in advance but wish to speak during the public comment opportunities may connect to the meeting by calling the meeting conference line at, and this number has changed, 778-907-2071. and entering meeting ID number 506-489-9374 and passcode 485186. After I have provided everyone who has pre-registered with an opportunity to comment, the floor will be open to those on the conference line. Corporate officer, there you are. Do we have any late items to add to the agenda?
There's no late items, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So council, I have someone bring forward approval of the agenda as it's been received. Councillor Holmes and Councillor Van Elfen. And could I ask for the other councillors to reveal their smiling faces, please? Thank you, Councillor Traynor. Councillor Carlson. There, thank you very much. Okay, I can see, we can see you now. So we're ready to vote then. All in favor? And none opposed. Okay, and on to adoption of the minutes. So there are 6 sets of minutes from the special council meeting November the 16th, committee of the whole November the 17th, special council November the 20th, Regular afternoon council meeting of November the 23rd. The minutes of the special council on November the 26th, and the committee of the whole meetings from November the 30th. Are there any revisions that need to be made, or are we ready to go ahead and approve those? Okay, could I ask for adoption then, please? Councillor Holmes, thank you, and Councillor Carlson, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. And now on to item 5 with the first of our 3 delegations today, and that is Summerland Museum. I see, yes, Kay Treadgold, and I thought, yes, and Greg Richardson. And there is a PowerPoint. Is that something that one of you is going to be sharing, or?
Yes, can you hear me, Mayor Booth?
Good.
It's Greg
Yes.
Richardson. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah. I'll do a share screen and then I'll walk through the PowerPoint.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Are we ready to go?
Yes, whenever you're ready.
Okay, here we go. Okay, and everyone can see this okay? Okay, the Summerland Museum and Archive Society have submitted a grant and aid application to the district for 2 proposed additions we would like to make to the museum. The PowerPoint is included in that application, and today I would like to briefly run through it in the time I have to introduce the concept and take any questions. So you can see the first slide. We also wish to acknowledge that the Summerland Museum and Archives respectfully acknowledges that we are situated on the unceded and ancestral territory of the Silks peoples. The purpose of this PowerPoint is to gain an understanding of how this, the functions in the museum, our mandate, our activities, what our current space requirements are, and what we're looking to add in order to make the operation more successful in the future, with some basic design principles, and we have some concepts for a building addition. The mandate of the museum is one that's been developed over quite a period of time, and we're dedicated to making our museum a place of activity, education, and enjoyment for the members of the district. And we do this by preserving and promoting Summerland's history through our collections, our displays, and our educational activities, especially the outreach programs. The museum's focuses are much like others in a small museum in a small town. Archival, very important here, preserving the artifacts, display of these, and our community outreach. This is a 3-legged stool that is critical to our ongoing functioning in the museum. Any good museum includes these basic functions. We have acquisitions, collections, archives, and storage of those, and then research and making them available to the public. We have our current exhibits, both permanent and temporary, and quite a program of educational activities, lectures and speakers, and various film events and school programs. In order to realize this, we need certain spaces in our museum, and they need to be separate in order for things to work in an organized manner. Our office and storage, workshops, display, preparation and maintenance, our gallery, and a multifunctional meeting room, which we are currently lacking. The museum now is approximately 50% of the area is taken up by our permanent exhibits, and we have a small room called the Tate Room, which is for our temporary and artifact storage on site, and a loading dock. As far as curatorial activities, we have no dedicated space for incoming artifacts. We have a lack of workspace, and the sharing of artifacts in the community is restricted. It's very important to be able to share it with the community, and restricted because we have an uncovered loading dock, which does not allow protection for the artifacts coming or going. In our ground floor plan, we have our display exhibit area, which are the permanent ones, and takes up more than half the floor area, and I mentioned our Tate Room. And we have 10 exhibits currently on display, plus our railroad model, which is on the second floor. And we currently have more than 102 pieces of local artwork, which was bequeathed by Dorothy Tate, and we'd very much like to display that. Our outreach activities are the one of our key elements. On average, we do 15 to 20 of these a year, but we have a small room, the Tate Room, which is only able to accommodate about 20 to 25 attendees. And we can't do this and maintain good curatorial practices. And we would like to plan many more events, but as you can see this from the photo, this is quite a crowded space. The largest event we have in the year is Light Up, where we have attendance of more than 500 visitors in one evening over the period of the evening. And this is a key activity both for fundraising and for raising the visibility of the museum. And you can see here our future members of the museum are lined up and quite enjoying themselves. Now, the board has developed over our various workshops we've had through research and working closely with staff over about the last 2 years, some agreed design principles that are very important to us. We need separate spaces for our functions. The back of house activities are critical to the ongoing operation. We need to enhance visibility and interest within the community, and ongoing maintenance of accessibility through both our research, through visitors, and basic accessibility for those which require assistance in entering. Our space needs are such that we need to expand the workshop area, create a separate space for presentations, and enhance public outreach through our loading area where we can actually send out various artifacts, which is a program we'd like to develop. We're asking for 2 specific additions to the museum to be pursued. One is a gallery meeting room and an enclosed loading dock. At the front of the museum, there's a natural space over on the northeast corner, which we're suggesting could be an area to add a proposed meeting room. It would be about 600 square feet or 56 square meters, and with an order of magnitude cost of a little over $200,000. Of course, that's subject to further planning. And we plan to do this in the coming 2 years, if possible. This is a rendering prepared by Cal Micklejohn, our architect who is a member of the firm that originally designed the museum. It has a projecting element on that northeast corner with open glazing to increase visibility. And on the northeast elevation, we have a close-up here showing what it would be like as you approach the museum viewing towards Wharton Street. The north elevation has another option, which Cal Micklejohn has developed, which is to add a museum addition that would face off towards the current roundabout and also be highly visible and give a space for our artifacts that are museum artifacts that are displayed on the exterior. The other area is our loading dock, which is currently quite difficult to use because it's totally open and exposed. We're looking at a small addition of about 20 square meters, probably $75,000 in cost. And looking to do this probably in 2 years' time if we can. And our application does show, this would be a view in with the enclosure. Our application does show that we are doing ongoing fundraising. We have a current application that will be going in for a cypre relaxation of some restricted funds. We're not asking for funds for this work to be done at this time, but we are requesting approval in principle to plan for these additions and also a grant of $15,000 for the year 2021 to engage an architect to develop the design of these proposed additions. And that would include reviewing the site and all the services requirements, doing building code reviews, preparing schematic drawings, and doing detailed consultation with the district. We recognize this is a district-owned building, and we certainly are looking to your approval to proceed because that is necessary. But we will work hard to do some fundraising, and we'll see how this goes. But if we can do this work, we will be able to have a good start on our future programs. We thank you for your ongoing support of the museum, which has been very generous over the years. and look forward to working with the district in our future planning and development of the museum activities. And if there are any questions, I can turn off the share screen and then we can go from there. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. I just have one question. Are you on the board of directors?
I am the vice president of the board of directors, yes.
Vice president, great.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and we have Kay Treadgold, Fenwick Treadgold, who is our president.
Yes, thank you.
I should have said that earlier.
Well, that's okay. I should have asked earlier and I would have introduced you that way.
Okay.
Council, any questions of Mr. Richardson or Ms. Treadgold while they're here? Councillor Holmes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Greg, for your presentation. It looks like a really interesting project. I was just wondering if there are any kind of grant funding opportunities for this kind of work that museums are able to tap into that you might know of.
Yes, we're constantly searching for these now. We have done one, which we actually have had approved recently, is to add accessibility to our front entrance point with a power operator, and that was approved immediately. There are various infrastructure grants that are out there. We could provide more detail on that to the council if they would like to see it. In our application, we have also noted a number of applications that we've made just recently. Through Young Canada Works, there is an investment readiness program, Museums Assistance Program, BCMA Resilience Fund, and a number of those that are available. This is a fairly extensive requirement in terms of the cost of doing the work, but we are going to be working diligently to do this in any way we can through federal and provincial grants and local grants. And I can give the details, further details if required.
No, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions, council? Mr. Richardson, you'll be submitting a grant in age proposal?
Yes, it's already been submitted.
It's already been, okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's in.
Yes, thank you.
I understand you. Can I ask a question? Do you meet separately on these in the new year? Is that
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Yeah. And will we have opportunity to present to those meetings, or are they simply closed with council?
I don't recall. I don't think they're closed.
Okay.
Maybe Ms. Needham, could you answer that question? I don't see the finance fellow here.
Okay. The question is, if you need any further information, we'd be pleased to be available. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think that as the finance, our director of finance, Mr. Svetlechny, goes through them, if there's anything that he needs extra questions on, then of course, council can ask those questions too. So yeah. Thank you. Thanks for offering that.
Council Holmes' question seriously, and we'll provide some more information there.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, council? Okay. And Kay, did you want to add anything to this? Or you're here for moral support?
Can't hear her.
No, we can't hear her, but I can't see her either. But okay, so thank you very much for your presentation today.
Thank you.
Karen, I don't see any motion there. Do we need to have a resolution just to receive this for information, or not?
Thank you, Mayor Boot. If you could receive
Yes.
the presentation for information.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor Barkwell and Councillor Patton, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? And Aaron, could you just give us a shout out? There, thank you.
My screen is being.
Yeah, we're seeing some interesting colors.
Keeps doing this to me on Zoom video, so I'm actually in the middle of writing an email to Roland right now to ask him.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now on to our second delegation, and that is Turning Points Collaborative. And there's Ann Howard right there. Welcome, Ann. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. My name is Ann Howard, and I'm with HPA Project Advisors, and I've been passionate about housing for many, many years. I'm here today with Randine Weger from Turning Points, and Chris Inkster and Todd Veneer from Freeport Industries. Thank you for your time today. We are here because we see an opportunity to provide affordable housing in Summerland and would like your support. Both the federal and provincial governments have made funding available. And I do have a PowerPoint, and I'm not sure, do I just share my screen as we go through that?
Yes, that would be great, Ann, if you can do that.
Okay. Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Okay, now let's just get me organized on my desktop here. So both the provincial and federal governments have made funding available to provide more affordable housing because they recognize the need. And we've noticed, and I've noticed in the past, that Summerland has also identified a need for affordable housing options. And so we have, oops. So we're looking at applying for funding through those agencies, and we've already applied and received an indication that we will receive funding for pre-development activities from CMHC. And we plan to submit a proposal to BC Housing for capital and operational plan funding on January 15th. Our vision is to build approximately 63 units of affordable housing, homes for people with a broad range of incomes. There are people who may not be able to afford, who may be able to afford rental housing in the private market, but just can't find any. And so there will be housing for those people. 30% of the units will be reserved for those people, and they will pay the low end of market rent, whatever that is when we get these units finished.
And could I just interrupt you for a moment? It's the mayor here. Should we be seeing an advancement of your slides, or are we still on the first one?
You should be seeing affordable housing.
Okay. I don't see it on my screen. I just see the one that shows opportunity with a beautiful picture of Summerland on the left.
Okay, so let me see what I can do. This is rather new to me, quite frankly.
Mayor Boot, if
Yes.
you'd like me to
Yeah.
try to share my screen, I could try that, Ann.
That would be really helpful.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I did practice, but obviously not enough.
We can't hear you, Karen.
You'll have to stop sharing your screen, Ann, please.
Okay. That's what I can't find, is where my button is. Okay, here we go.
Great.
There.
Okay. Okay, can you see that? Yes, okay.
Yes, looks
So-
great.
So I can advance if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Okay.
There we go.
Good, thank you.
That will go more in with what I'm talking about.
And before you get started again, Anne, did you say, how many units did you say?
Approximately 63. We haven't done all the details and the design work yet. So we're in that neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So then we will have 50% of the units will be designated for people not able to pay low market rents, but and have money for other necessities. So their rent will be 30% of their income. So that will range depending on income. And then 20% of the units will be reserved for those people that are on disability or pensions or have very low income, and they will have units allocated for them. So slide 3.
Okay.
So right now, as partners, Turning Points will apply to BC Housing and CMHC for construction and operational funding. Freeport will then, if we're successful, construct the building, and get it right yet. And I will provide oversight of the development process. At the end of the day, Turning Points will own and operate the housing. They will not only own and operate it, but they will support their tenants to be good tenants, and they will support and provide good neighbors and establish good neighborhood relationships. Slide 4.
Okay.
So where we are right now is Freeport has an accepted offer of purchase of 8709 Jubilee Road. If the zoning if rezoning is successful and funding is secured, Turning Points will own and operate the housing. Freeport will construct the homes. Turning Points will have a 60-year operating agreement with BC Housing to ensure that the housing remains affordable for many years. Next slide. Randine, do you want to take it from here?
Absolutely. Thank you, Anne. And thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to present. My name is Randine Weeger, and I work as the Executive Director for Turning Points Collaborative. As you can see on the slide there, we are a nonprofit business. We've been a registered charity operating in the Okanagan since 1957. We currently provide housing, outreach, addictions, and employment services from Salmon Arm to West Kelowna. Next slide, please. We provide a continuum of housing. So we do shelters, sober living, we have some market housing, supportive housing, and we have other affordable housing units through the Okanagan. So we tenant our buildings with input from our community partners, and this is based on the need and the right fit for whatever housing within the continuum that we operate. We also have tenants sign good neighbor agreements, and we establish community advisory committees in all of our communities in order to enhance safety and wellness of our neighborhoods. Can I get the next slide, please? So we are one of the fastest growing organizations in the Okanagan. We currently operate 17 sites, and we're working on 6 more at this time. We employ more than 170 skilled individuals, and that continues to grow. Can I have the next slide, please? So we work very hard to create safe and healthy communities for everyone. And that's it for me.
Hello, everyone. My name is Todd Veneer. I'm CEO and co-owner of Freeport Industries in Westbank. At Freeport, we specialize in the design and construction of high-quality modular homes. We are located in West Kelowna with approximately 100 employees. Our commitment to our customers is to build high-quality buildings, to build trust, and to provide exceptional service. Next slide. Our process is energy efficient. We are environmentally sensitive, and we produce less waste than conventional building methods. There's less impact on the neighborhood during construction, and all of our buildings are built in a controlled environment within our manufacturing facility. Our multi-unit buildings are customizable and are quicker to build, which means the people who are occupying the homes are able to move in a lot sooner than on-site construction.
This is our sneak preview of our concept plan. And so open to answer any questions that you might have about next steps or what this might look like.
Thank you. Questions, Council? Councillor Patton and then Councillor Trainer.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very pleased to see Freeport involved in this project. Knowing the good that they've done on Agassiz Road, I know that they're looking at doing housing in West Kelowna, and their product is great. And I think it's going to, if this moves forward, I think it's going to be a huge benefit to the district of Summerland. So it's something that we've all been talking about in regards to affordable housing and attainable housing, and I think this comes right up the alley in which we're looking at. So thank you for the presentation. It was great. Thank you.
Councillor Trainer?
Thank you. I'm just wondering, is this the first project in the South Okanagan, or were there others?
I'm sure there will be others, and there have been others in the past. Some of you might know my background was BC Housing, and we had a lot of projects throughout the Okanagan as a result of the last proposal call through BC Housing. And I know I'm involved in a few submissions, and I think there will be many others as well.
Okay, and I just have one more follow-up question. I'm just curious, when did you first think about the idea of doing this in Summerland, and how come you chose the location that you did?
Well, a combination of two things. Freeport approached me and we're looking to do some more affordable housing building. And I talked with them about possible communities that do have a need. At least I knew of that need from prior experience. And so Freeport started looking for land that might be available. You know, you look for close to amenities, you look for places that are close to schools, you look to places that are large enough, affordable, all of those sorts of things. And this one was on the market. So we talked to your staff, and we thought it might be a good fit.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trainer. Councillor Holmes and then Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Anne, for that. This is a really exciting project, and you know, and your background in BC Housing, I think, is quite reassuring. Probably, as you know, the housing forum that you participated in here in Summerland, was maybe 3 years ago now. Not much has progressed beyond that, unfortunately. So this is much needed. And as I said, it's the partnership you have put together there is really impressive. So my question is, what kind of support do you think you might be looking at from us, from the district?
Well, we don't want to presume upon you for the rezoning process. But should that be successful, it is often, in my experience anyways, that we would come to you to ask for your participation with perhaps reduced development cost fees, things like expediting the processes. Actually, I've already done that with your staff, asked them if they could possibly do that, and reducing property taxes. None of those are mandatory from a provincial perspective, but all of those kinds of things do add to the credibility of the application when we make it. So if there is support in principle for this type of project from the council, a letter of support would be great to attach to the submission. Again, I don't want to presume on the zoning, and it might be that you decide that this piece of property is not the right one and that we look for others. But that is the that would be the request that we would have.
Mr. Barkwell?
Thank you. Well, you answered the first question I had in mind when I was looking and thinking, Ann Howard, where do I know that name and that face? So BC Housing, okay. I guess it's more of my question was sort of along the lines of Councillor Holmes, but being a little more specific, your application has to be in by January 15th with BC Housing. That application you suggested will only require sort of an approval in principle. You don't need to have us have the property rezoned or say specifically what the development cost charges will be. Well, that makes things easier. I guess I have to say from where I sit right now, I really like the idea and the location, and I'm pleased to see something with that number of units there, which is a little bit closer to what's across the street at Silver Birch in those areas. Original proposals were only for about 30 units, and although they fell through, maybe that's not a bad thing if we get 60 units on that space. I guess your design is going to have to take into account that wall there at the old packing house. I'll look forward to seeing how you deal with that. But yeah, great. Let's go.
Questions? Anyone else? Where'd Councillor? Oh, there you are. Councillor Van Alphen, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I just agree with Councillor Barkwell. Let's go. We're long overdue in Summerland for sure, and I welcome any, the design plans and I'm just excited to see something go forward. And 60 units sounds really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Alphen. And I'd just like to add my excitement to the other, as the other councillors have expressed, making. I know that the zoning is not what you need right now, but as Councillor Van Alphen just said, and I think Councillor Barkwell said as well, the 60 units in an area that is designated, I'm not even sure what it would be, high density probably. I think that is a really good use of the space, especially where it is, right, like as you said, close to all amenities. It's also close to a bus stop, so that's good. That's another thing that's really good about that spot. My question would be, you mentioned earlier that you had been speaking to staff. I guess with the approval in principle by January the 15th, just a sec. Oh, of course, I don't have a January 2021. When's our first council meeting in January, Karen?
It's January the 11th, Mayor Boot.
So what are your thoughts then to, how do we manage this? Because this is our one and only December meeting. And how do we do this in terms of the approval in principle? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I can, and perhaps Anne can give her thumbs up or not, but council, if council wishes, you could direct or council could support a letter of support for a proposed affordable housing project in Summerland that has been proposed by the Turning Points Collaborative. So, and you could add the word conditional support, but really you're supporting affordable housing in Summerland.
Okay. Does that sound good to, thank you, Councillor Van Elfen. I feel like an auctioneer all of a sudden. A seconder? Councillor Holmes, thank you. Any further discussion or questions of any of the presenters here on this particular project? Okay, I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Great, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Anne. And it was Randine and Todd. I think there was somebody else here too. Chris, are you part of this group? Good, great. Thank you so much for your presentation today. And we look forward to seeing you in front of council again in the near future.
As we do.
And good luck with your grant applications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Great. Okay, thank you, council. And so now on to our RCMP quarterly update. The sergeant has been patiently waiting. You're up. You're up, Dave. We don't see your face, but we did earlier.
How about, oh, it's saying the host has disabled that ability there, so I can't hit, sorry, I guess you can't see me. That's,
well, we can hear you.
Okay.
We will let the video play shortly, Dave.
Okay, I can hang on for a minute here.
You can go ahead if you like, and we'll just turn it on. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Yay. Yes, thank you.
All right. Okay, before I get into the Q3 stats here, I just wanted to kind of just touch base and talk about our strategic priorities that we have pretty much ongoing. Number one, violence in relationships. Number two, traffic in terms of speeding. Number three, police community relations, and that's more specifically about police visibility. And number four, crime reduction for property crime. Some key points that I wanted to just touch on in terms of the traffic and the police visibility. We did have we do have an initiative in place right now to increase the number of traffic stops. That itself, just from this past 3 months compared to 2019, we had a 700% increase in our immediate roadside prohibitions, so impaired drivers. So we went from 14 to, sorry, we went from 2 to having 14 just as a result of stopping more vehicles. So it's been quite successsul. We also do work quite well with our partnering South Okanagan Traffic Services, and we do have 3 members that park their police cars here, and they start and end their shifts here. So that is definitely helps us here. They've run a counterattack in Summerland, I believe December 4th weekend. They're going to be hitting up the town here again, I think in another couple weeks. But yeah, our Q3, of course, is our busier months that we, in terms of our file number. Our file count for that particular period went up 26% compared to 2019. Even though right now our file count year to date is only gone up 3%. It was a busier summer for us here in Summerland. Just for an example, we're at, as of today, just running the computer, we're at 2,886 files for 2020. Last year at the same date, December 14th, it was 2,832. So it's 54 file increase. That's not considering our online crime reporting that we've initiated. That online crime reporting, though, it only has generated 9 files. That is something that I do want to work with the community and see more of that happen. It's just more of the, what you can report is, lost or stolen items, vandalized property, driving complaints that's not in progress. You can't use the online if you have a witness or a suspect, or if it's theft of ID or obviously significant values. So there's that. So yeah, so as far as the numbers go, there was a considerable increase in our violent crime. We did have 250% increase just in domestic violence. The 250 sounds alarming, but it's, when you look at the actual numbers, it's we had 2 files in 2019, and this in 2020 we had 7. So that's what makes the increase looks so significant. Property crime is a good news. It's gone down. Those numbers have definitely gone down. What hasn't gone down, and we've spoken to this, other area commanders and detachment commanders, we've talked about it, and we all kind of share the same issues and concerns, is auto theft and theft from motor vehicles. And a lot of those, I know, we, like for Summerland in specific, we've gone from 11 in the same quarter in 2019 to 18 stolen autos in 2020. So, and I know, speaking for myself, I know that I can say that, at least 3 of them, the keys were left in the vehicle or in the ignition even. It is one of those things that we continually try to educate the public on, that, not leaving valuables or, purse or wallet or the keys in a vehicle. But these things happen, and it happens. It's preventative measures or preventative crime that can take place, and it's something that we're really trying to work with the public on that. Let's see, as far as the other stats, nothing else that I had noted here. If we get into the budget that I have here, it was at the end of November 30th. We're in really good shape. We're 38% of our budget. Obviously, our budget's different, going till the end of March. But the benchmark that they base it on is that we should be at 67%. So it's we're definitely in good shape in terms of the budget. Part of that reason, I mean, we have been short human resources. We're supposed to be at a 9-member, but we've only been at 6.93. Up until a couple weeks ago, we got a constable from Chilliwack, Constable Nay-Ring. So she has joined us, and so that number will obviously climb up to closer to the 8, and we'll just be short one member. So that's all good right now. And speaking of good, positive, we partnered with the Brain Injury Society and Constable March, she spearheaded a program, and it was a positive ticketing program where she went out and issued a whole bunch of tickets for, it was youth under 12. They had to, it was all positive if they were wearing a helmet, or if they're using the crosswalk, if they're social distancing, if they just basically staying safe and had a smile on their face kind of thing, then they were given tickets. So that was successful there, and that was definitely, it's worth something doing next summer again. So one thing that we have planned, and it's going to be auto crime prevention notice, and hopefully this will help curb the theft from auto vehicles type of files. But it's this auto crime. I don't know if you can see it or not, but we plan to either partner with some, we're always looking for volunteers, or work with our citizens on patrol, and also our members here, but just to work and hit up the parking lots. And so many people, like I say, leave their doors unlocked. They leave valuable items in their vehicle. So that's hoping what this will do is to just kind of make people aware a little bit more that they should be locking their doors. And so other than that, I don't have anything else to touch on.
Unknown caller.
Jeez. Oh, mass marketing. That was one of those fraud calls that.
Perfect timing.
San Jose, California.
Oh no. Any council questions of Sergeant Preston? Councillor Barklow.
Are you sure that wasn't the CRA calling you to tell you that you owe money?
We get a lot of those. It's great.
The development in policing that we see a lot of these days, it really interests me, because I've heard about it for so long, and it now seems to be getting more traction. And I mentioned this before, the mental health aspects of working with the police to deal with, and I'm sure you kind of welcome this initiative that you could have the assistance of mental health workers for dealing with situations that are difficult, not necessarily for criminal reasons, or the underpinnings of the criminal activity is mental health. And I've seen on the news initiatives in the Kelowna area, but is there anything in the works for South Okanagan? And is there anything that we can do, letters of support or whatever, funding? I don't know if I want to go that far from a municipal aspect to push this sort of initiative along.
I know, I haven't heard of anything. I know that they did send something to the provincial government, and now that they've been reelected, I think they were putting something else through again. But I don't know the details, or I don't know anything on that. But yeah, no, it is definitely something that that we would definitely welcome. Because even just touching on when we talk about violence in a relationship, when we talk about that file, it's not just our initial showing up at the file and that's it. I mean, so much of our work is the afterwards part of it, and it's partnering with victim services, with other agencies to sort of move forward, and Ministry of Child and Family, all these other, like I say, that these other agencies, that when we work together, the mental health, it is tough because we do work with them quite a bit, but a lot of times there's an element of danger involved in it. So even if they show up, most likely, a lot of times there's a unpredictability aspect of those type of files that safety is a concern. So when safety is a concern, that's when we get the calls too. But where it would be very beneficial is all the afterward stuff, all the follow-ups and all that stuff that would be extremely beneficial.
Sorry, but the Zoom sound kind of cut out, and I didn't hear the very beginning of what you had to say, which I assumed was like something to do with the province and what we could do, maybe a letter or something, or?
Oh yeah, no, I mentioned that I didn't know much detail about it. What I did mention was that there was some indication that they had sent, and this is at the Southeast District level. I know they pushed something forward. Then it went to the government, the provincial government, and since there's been, the government's been reelected I think there was another idea of going forward again with some kind of proposed plan. But like I say, I don't know, and I don't know any of the details.
So I guess the question is there anything that we can do?
That I can, I can mention that to my boss, and if there is, I will definitely I'll bring that up in the future.
Thanks.
Before I go to you, Councillor Holmes, I just wanted to ask a question of our acting CAO. On the call on Thursday, I think it was Thursday, did not Sergeant Hunter mention something about social workers working or mental health people working alongside the police?
They do have that in Penticton.
Okay.
Yeah, so Penticton has, but of course that is, restricted hours and limited hours and like that. So.
Okay, and Councillor Barkle, I think that's what you were referring to.
Well, I hadn't heard about Penticton, but I'd heard about Kelowna, and I do understand there is the hours issue, but it's better than nothing.
Like we do, like I say, there's the community crisis outreach team that we work quite a bit with, and so when we deal with mental health investigations, a lot of times there'll be a follow up with them, and then they'll follow up. So it's a separate entity, but we definitely work close with them.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering if in the future, if we could get a copy of the statistics that you're referring to. Sure. I know we get the quarterly reports that go to the regional districts, but those include all the other regions, and I don't really know how to pull just Summerland's out. So it'd be nice if we could have those stats for Summerland in our quarterly reports here.
Sure.
Thank you. And then also you mentioned at the regional district that Summerland, we've started online crime reporting here, that you can report crimes online. I just wondered if you could tell us how that works.
Well, if you just if you Googled report a crime online Summerland, the Google will come up and it shows how you go about there, and you can just start. It's through the Summerland RCMP link. I don't know the exact link, but I know I just Googled it before the meeting here, and it comes up, and because it is something, like I say, I would love to see that number increase, because not only is it beneficial even to people, the community, is just being able to on the computer just type up everything right then and there, and not necessarily have to wait for phoning in during business hours. We did just even a off topic kind of is the phone messages, and it seems like it's helping. We did change our voice message to really encourage people to, if you need a police officer, to press, can't remember what the option is, but so they press a certain option, and then it goes to our dispatch, and dispatch is a member. Because a lot of times we found that Mondays were just such a busy day for people that left voice messages on the weekend, even though we had members working day and evenings and nights, and they don't get it because they don't check the messaging. So it's a kind of the administrative side of the operations.
Okay.
Anything else?
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you for your time today, Dave. could I have someone bring forward a resolution to receive this for information, please? Councillor Trainer, Councillor Van Elfen, all in favor? Great. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, and now is the first of two opportunities for public comment. And I have a list here. And first to speak, and I think yes, he's here, is Robert Hacking.
Hey, thank you, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll be quick. I know we're on a time crunch here. This is regarding Dog Park's agenda item. I'm speaking on behalf of the Summerland Dog Owners Association today. This is my opinion. While the consultant's report wishes to promote that there's no clear best location, Snow Ave has won every key measure in the survey that was sent out. And even though the survey was not adjusted to account for the disproportionate amount of Trout Creek responses or population in Summerland, Snow Ave still ranked the highest in the main metrics of a first choice location, a second choice location, and a location most likely to actually be used. Even before $48,000 in mitigation costs were deducted as unneeded, Snow Ave still had the highest overall scores in the cost benefit category. Snow Ave also scored the highest overall in the accessibility and design categories as well. When we look at the responses from areas representing the highest population density, a 58% majority indicated they would use the site, and a 53% majority indicated it was their first choice for a dog park. Snow Ave Field Number 3 has proven itself the most suitable and acceptable location. And its existing amenities and infrastructure present value to the taxpayer. It has a reasonable and effective mitigation strategy. It is in a safe and accessible location that will not disturb the community. We're disappointed that comments on the actual survey intended for council to read have not been included in the report at all, and substantial external feedback regarding one particular location from one particular area is prominently also included. Not included additionally are years and years of letters of support for the dog park specifically at Snow Avenue. Instead, they're buried at the bottom of the webpage under miscellaneous correspondence. Are dog owners expected to keep writing the same letters each time this process starts up again to be seen and considered? Several new options have now been suggested, and even though council did not request it, and without any stakeholder review. As time's constrained, I'm only going to speak to the Fosbury location that's mentioned in the report. We have three unaddressed issues from what council provided in the report. First one is parking. The Fosbury location is a small cul-de-sac with very little parking. For a tourist-facing site where is an RV expected to park, let alone turn around? Signage will not solve this concern, and you can expect local residents to be very upset with the resulting overflow. Size. The entire site footprint is narrow and bottlenecked, with much tree cover. At maximum possible expansion, the site only equals the smallest of Snow Ave designs. For safe exercise and play, and to accommodate uses such as agility and training, a primary park for a community this size should be between 1.6 and 3 acres. This is a best practice recommendation, but in the staff report, it is diminished as a mere desire of dog owners instead. That the staff report would use this opinion to denigrate residents' concerns about the need for an adequately sized park should be very concerning to council. Safety. Balls getting on highway is one concern, but what about the dogs themselves? If your dog jumped the fence and got loose while loading, how much time and space would you have to react? Would you feel safe bringing your kids to this park too? Snow Ave is protected by a steep embankment that blocks both visibility and access to the highway. Accidents happen, and a dog running loose on Snow Ave will most often just be a nuisance. At Fosbury, a dog running loose will too often become an awful tragedy. How likely is the Ministry of Transportation to give permission considering the location and risks? Does council feel confident this site is suitable enough to start this process over again? The Consultant and Parks Advisory Committee both confirm that the community engagement has been thorough and complete. After one of the lengthiest processes this district has ever had, council should consider if any further staff time and taxpayer expense is likely to identify alternatives that are superior to Snow Ave. If council cannot, just pull the Band-Aid off and build this park. The dog owning residents of this community have been waiting for too long. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Robert. Next on the list is Jennifer Stark. Are you still with us, Jennifer? Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Is my video on?
No.
Oh, okay.
We can hear you though. That's the most important piece, I guess.
Start my video. There we go.
Oh, there we are. Okay, thank you.
Hi. My name is Jennifer Stark and my address is 7815 Giants Head Road, Summerland. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the new dog park today. The following comments are mine and mine alone. So I'll begin. I understand that work needs to be done by this council to correctly implement new projects in the community. It is my understanding that all this work has been long past done for the dog park, and in fact has been 9 years in the making, while other recreational projects have been implemented in much less time. As dog owners, we have nowhere to go in Summerland for a safe dog exercise, socialization, and training space. Most of all, we need a safe place where dog owners, especially the elderly and those with physical challenges, can meet and socialize with like-minded others who share the same passion. Dogs need to be off leash so they can run and play and be well socialized. Many dogs, for various reasons, cannot do this in the streets, on the trails, or on the beaches without containment. A dog park is the defined space where play and socializing is the main activity so all this can happen. I feel strongly that every citizen of Summerland has the right to choose their recreation and that our district council has the duty to make that happen. This is why we pay taxes and vote for our city council. In the case of the dog park, though, that duty has not been performed. I personally feel that as a dog owner, I am discriminated against, and so I am excluded from one of the main community activities in which I am interested because I cannot swing a bat or hit a ball. Because of this, I would like to move to a community with a dog park who would welcome me. But since I have been fighting cancer for the past year, that makes it a wee bit difficult. That leads me to believe that people from elsewhere who are dog owners and want to move to the Okanagan may choose a different community because there is no dog park here in Summerland. This council has now seen fit to stall any more implementation of the dog park by adding new sites to ponder and discuss, when further discussion is a complete waste of taxpayers' money. These sites are completely inappropriate due to the size and location. They are so small that you cannot throw a ball for a small dog, let alone a big dog. And the highway location of one of them is, to say the least, insulting. I don't see a skate park built right by the highway. The two park locations, one at Snow Avenue and the other at Powell Beach, have already been looked at and surveys. So please choose one of these and get on with it. This isn't just about dogs. It's about the people of Summerland. Thank you for listening. That is all I have to say for now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay. Third to speak is Deb McKay, or Mackay maybe. I don't see her on Zoom. Maybe we'll come back to her then and go. Oh,
hello.
Oh, there you are. Oh, you're on the iPhone. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Please go ahead, Deb.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor Boot and Council, for the opportunity to speak with you today. A lot has been covered of what I was going to say by both Robert and Jennifer, so I don't want to be redundant here. Summerland does really need a fully fenced dog park for all dogs of all sizes. When you make your decision, I ask that you consider the safety for the dogs and the owners, the size, which affects the safety as well. Small dog parks, congested ones can create problems with between dogs, and the accessibility for the most residents and the amenities that are available on site. Jennifer has already went over, as well as Robert, the areas that are under consideration. I agree that Fosbury highway easement is a bit ridiculous due to its size and location. Really, there's Snow Avenue or Living Memorial. It's the only one that's large enough and can accommodate a small area for small dogs and a larger area for large and medium-sized dogs. And no matter which location you choose, though, we require a double gate for safety reasons so that no dogs escape basically while other people are entering and exiting. We're very limited here in Summerland, I think, like in the areas that we'd like for an area that can accommodate this. Dale Meadows was again recently added, and I think the problem with Dale Meadows is it's a great location, it's accessible, it's got parking, lovely park. However, the size that was allocated in the plan is way too small. I think Robert had already mentioned, or maybe it was Jennifer, that we need about 2 acres, 2 to 3 acres in order for it to be adequate for us. Respectfully, I hope that you will consider our input, not just the surveys and the results, but our input as well, because we have been waiting for a long time. And we would like a decision rendered so that we can have the dog park building commence. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. And then finally is Al Hayes. There we go. Please go ahead, Al.
There we go. Good day, Mayor, Council, and all interested parties. My name is Al Hayes, and I have been a lifelong dog owner and resident of Summerland since 2002. Residents and visitors to Summerland need a local dog park where both persons and their canine family members may socialize in a safe and secure manner. This facility must be suitable for both small and large dogs to ensure their safety. As our community core grows and increases in density, there will be more and more residents with dogs in the central area who will require a suitable place to exercise them. As far as locations go, I find it interesting that only 7% of Trout Creek residents reported Powell Beach as their first choice. With this information, it should result in council declining any further consideration of Powell Beach as an acceptable site. If the Trout Creek locals do not want a dog park in their community, council needs to pay attention. For the Snow Avenue site, 95% of central residents voted for this site as first choice, 53%, or second choice, 42%, which is overwhelming support for this site by the people most likely to use a Snow Avenue dog park. Outlying area properties typically have larger lots or farms where their pets can exercise anytime, and these residents are unlikely to pack up the dogs and drive to a dog park. Their responses are evenly spread out between all 3 sites, indicating no clear preference, likely because they have their own site at home. The rodeo grounds has no majority support, and due to its many developmental problems like extensive road, pathway, parking lot, groundworks, fencing, irrigation, snow removal required, together with associated higher costs, as well as an increased travel distance and increased time required to develop the site, plus the negative dog versus horse or dog versus snake interactions, this site also needs to be declined for further consideration. Clearly, the Snow Avenue site is the clear choice for an easy transition from a very minimally used ball field into a community dog park. This site is centrally located, has quick road access, has a good existing paved parking lot, good grass and irrigation. All that is basically required is some additional fencing, gates, and council's approval to get this done. No further study or analysis required to make a decision on these 3 sites as presented as the best options to council. Please delay no further and get this dog park ready for use as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Elle. Thanks again to everyone that commented on this. Clearly some passionate dog owners in Summerland. Karen, did you have somebody else that would like to speak?
I was just wondering if we should ask if there is anyone else that's joined the meeting.
Okay. Is there anyone else that has joined the meeting that would like to speak, not necessarily on the dog park? This is an opportunity for you to comment on anything that's on the agenda this afternoon. I'll ask for a second time. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the public opportunity at the beginning of this meeting? Okay, that's good. Thank you. So now we'll get on to item 7.1, which is the dog park project. And Lori, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Council. The purpose of this report is to review the consultant's final report and recommendations on off-leash dog parks and for staff to receive direction from Council on how to move forward. Leslie Dyke, the consultant who worked on the land use assessment for dog parks, pickleball, and tennis last year, was engaged to work with district staff to explore the locations Council identified in March for a fenced year-round off-leash dog park. The consultant led the process to conduct research on the proposed layouts and estimated costs, as well as conducted community consultation on the selected locations. The engagement included reaching out to stakeholder groups and neighbors, facilitating online open houses, conducting an online survey, and compiling community input. The consultant met with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee on August 24th to gain input on her information documents and survey questions. She met with the advisory committee again on November 25th to present her community engagement summary and gain further input prior to finalizing her report. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee made a resolution at the November 25th meeting that recommends to Council that they direct staff to further explore locations near downtown, such as Dale Meadows Sports Complex and the Fosbury easement. The work completed this fall revealed that the Powell Beach Park location and the Summerland Rodeo grounds are not recommended to pursue further. The Living Memorial Park Ball Diamond number 3 option, while it meets most of the criteria, has raised concerns about displacing a user group. This has led the consultant to bring forward 2 other locations for consideration, which have minimal or no impacts to user groups and limited impacts on neighboring residents. The consultant is recommending that further information be gathered to explore these additional sites to best make an informed decision on identifying a preferred location. The staff recommendation is to proceed with option 3B from the consultant's report, which is to investigate 1 additional location. As the Dale Meadows location would take away some parking, impact some of the larger events on that site, require some infrastructure relocation, and impact the flow of people on the site, the Fosbury site is recommended should only 1 site be considered further. It is also likely that the construction and planning costs associated with this location to be lower than the Dale Meadows option. By investigating the Fosbury location further, staff will need to work with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure on permit requirements, develop a site map which meets MOTI requirements, review liability considerations, review rezoning requirements, and identify project and construction costs. And preliminary discussions with MOTI have indicated that there is support to work with us to look at permit requirements. It is recognized that the Fosbury location also has some challenges which dog owners may bring up, including the desire to have a larger site, some ball throwing restrictions, and concerns around highway noise. It does, however, check many of the desired features, including providing space for both small and large dogs, being close to town, and no displacement of existing user groups. It is also easily accessible for visitors driving through Summerland for a dog-friendly rest stop. Should council pass that resolution, staff would bring back the information for council review in comparison to the Living Memorial Park location for a final decision. I would like to formally thank Leslie for all her hard work on this project. We have received an overwhelming amount of feedback from the community with various opinions and suggestions, which has taken a long time to sort through. So with that, I would like to pass it over to Leslie to present her final report and answer any questions that council has.
Great. Thanks very much, Lori. How's my sound?
We can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So I'm going to do a screen share. I've got a few slides. My plan is to just take a few minutes to kind of go through the overall aspects of the project and the survey report, kind of pulling it all together. But I won't take long. I'll keep it at a very high level because I think that really the space needs to be for discussion because there's a lot of elements that are in play that will need to be discussed. So if that's acceptable, then I'll just go ahead.
Yes, please.
Okay. So the report that I put together, which you all received, really three purposes. One was to summarize the recent work on identifying an appropriate site for an off-leash dog park. The second was to share the findings from the community consultation. That consultation was based on the sites prioritized by council in March of 2020, and then to make some recommendations on preferred sites and potential next steps. So just briefly, phase one, September to January, as part of the land use planning research, off-leash dog parks were part of that, as were some bylaw adjustments, etc. That process included interviews with stakeholder groups, input from Parks and Recreation Committee, input from council. There was an open house to review proposed options and collect feedback. And then the main recommendations related to location of an off-leash dog park was to build a dog park at Peach Orchard Beach Park, at the end near to the boat ramp. Further explore a potential partnership with the Julia Street Community Church and consider as part of the master planning for the rodeo grounds and Memorial Park in case those were reasonable options. In March 2020, council rejected the recommendation for Peach Orchard Beach Park due to the expected impact on the local community. And that resulted in asking staff to consult around 5 sites. 2 of those sites were churches, one of which, Julia Street Community Church, we already had a conversation going with. But then there was a suggestion that we reach out to St. John's Lutheran Church. Both of those churches I did reach out to and speak with, and they determined that it wasn't in the best interest to continue in that discussion. And that was largely due to their concerns about expected impact on the community closest to them, their neighbors, as well as concerns about a lack of flexibility in using that space for other purposes. So in the end, the community engagement process focused on the 3 sites recommended by council, Living Memorial Park, also shorthand Snow Avenue, Powell Beach Park, and the Summerland Rodeo Grounds. So this next phase, there was a bit of a delay as COVID upset our life, but we returned to focus on this in August. So that process included the development of background documents, a clear document around what is a dog park, so that people would understand what it was that we were discussing, and some of the evidence-based best practices that are out there around the design of a safe and secure and people and dog-friendly dog park. Proposed off-leash sites, so that's where we described each of those 3 sites and created descriptions and some example footprints of what the park area could look like. And that was intended so that people would have something they could provide feedback to in a really clear way, as well as to be able to develop at least a cost, so that people would have a bit of an idea of how much each would cost for comparison purposes as well, but not down to the fine detail of design. That would be recommended to be saved for once a site has been selected. And then impact and mitigation options. So that is because, of course, there are other users of these 3 park areas, and we needed to really carefully consider what the mitigation would look like and how the areas could be adapted. So those 3 documents were developed. There were stakeholder group consultations, and that consultation, the feedback from those were brought in to the background documents so that the documents would reflect as closely as possible the perspectives of the stakeholders, to make sure that there wasn't anything in those documents that was misleading. So then there were open houses. Again, given that we were in the pandemic situation, the open houses were held as Zoom online calls. We had people submitting Q&A in advance, questions, or submitting questions in advance, so that we'd have a good idea of what kinds of questions we were going to be getting, and we could organize the answers in a way to be as time efficient as possible. Participants also responded by putting questions into the chat. Then there was also the website, and the information that was put on the website included all of the different documents that were being received from whoever they were received. So there was a lot of correspondence put up there. We put up a frequently asked questions document as well, so that people could really understand what questions other organizations and individuals in Summerland were asking and what the answers were. So again, we'd have really good clarity. People would be on the same page. And then there was some historical information posted on there as well, to the information that had been submitted over past processes by the Summerland Dog Owners Association, for example. Then we did the public survey. It was an online survey. We did have paper versions that could be requested. And our response was 308 completed surveys. So that is the second phase. Very generally, the results of the community consultation. In terms of correspondence, we received 50 different items, everything from letters written by children through to emails, through to groups speaking on behalf of their constituents. They were all posted anonymously so that people, again, could see what their fellow citizens were saying. In summary, just to make it really digestible, there were 8 items in favor of one of the options that were proposed, the 3 options advocating. There were 2 that were really specifically focused on advocacy for small dogs and small dog safety. There were 6 that were against any kind of off-leash dog park, not feeling that it was necessary. There were 5 against the rodeo grounds or living memorial. So a few there only. There were 30 against Powell Beach, and we'll talk about that in more detail in a moment. And then there were 23 that had suggestions of other sites. From our stakeholders, we received a couple of documents from the Summerland Dog Owners Association, and we received one from Summerland Minor Fastball. Further to this survey, we received 302 electronic 6-paper surveys. This represents, now this is based on 2016 stats data, but Stats Canada data, but it represents just over 3% of the population age 20 and older. Results were compared by area, not by dog ownership. 73% of respondents owned a dog. And part of the reason for analyzing by area is because there were no clear patterns when you would put everyone together, and you could really see that the differences in needs and perspectives were really geographically located. So that's why all the data is reported along geographic lines. And you can see that the central area is where you tend to have the older respondents. You tend to have people who have less access to a vehicle, and you also have more women responding as well, which I think is relevant. And then of course we asked a question about service animals. So the central area seemed to be the area that had the higher need, just based on that data. Neighborhoods. So when I say central area, I'm putting together the Upper Town and 97 East. And we use these neighborhood names because these are the ones that the District of Summerland uses for planning purposes. Trout Creek is its own area for planning purposes, so we kept that as the area for that analysis. And then the outlying areas, all of the outlying areas were represented. In some cases, maybe only one person, but they all did get at least one survey returned. And we asked whether for people to identify if they didn't live in Summerland, and we had almost 2% of responses of people who didn't live in Summerland. So when I speak about the findings, that's the communities I'm speaking to. So main findings: no clear overall best site. We were hopeful that there would be the majority of Summerlanders saying yes, we absolutely endorse one particular site. But this was one of the reasons why the information is broken down geographically. When you look at all of the data put together, there is no one overall best site. And it was an arbitrary decision to call anything that was 50% or more as being a good indicator that there is support. And because when you put all the data together, 43% supported living memorial, it's the site that had the most support. But really you get a better sense of the meaningful and the importance of living memorial when you start to look at geographically. So that's why it's really important to recognize that it is the central area. When we asked about to rank the sites, that was one way we asked about figuring out where people's preferences were. But we also asked about how likely is it you will use. So even if people thought that a certain site was the preferred site, it didn't necessarily mean they said that they were going to use it. So it's interpreting the results because we decided to go with a survey that was simple and straightforward and not very long. We determined that it would be better to ask a couple questions to get a sense and then ask people to provide feedback on the quality of the sites. So no overall best site. I think one thing that's really important to understand is that dog ownership does not determine level of support. 73% of respondents own a dog, and there was really diverse understanding or perspectives or in relation to off-leash sites. We had people with dogs saying that there is no need for an off-leash site. So it's not a dog owner versus non-dog owner discussion, in my opinion. So the top concerns, even if people said they would be likely to use a particular site, they also said that they're reluctant to take recreation opportunities away from people. So that's really important. And that came through again and again and again. And people who were saying that they did support taking recreation space away, they also would say and make the point of saying that it's important to compensate and provide a mitigation strategy that is reasonable. So the sense from overall, the takeaway is that Summerlanders support an off-leash dog park, and they also support and value current recreation opportunities. And then of course, the other really important top concern is cost effectiveness. And all Summerlanders, there were a number of comments around COVID and the cost and the impact on our community. People are very sensitive to cost and making sure that it is a good investment. So all of that to say, the last kind of main finding is that there's competing visions about the purpose of a fenced off leash park. And I think we've started to hear that already. Some people imagine that it needs to be just a little small area right in the center of town because people don't have anything because they're in apartments. And other people feel that, well, it actually needs to be something that is larger, that is like gold standard, that provides the kind of space that you can run all sizes of dogs in. And other people feel like it needs to be a destination. It needs to be something that attracts people from all over. So the vision about the purpose of a fenced off-leash park needs to be an important consideration. And so that's one of the reasons why my first recommendation is to prioritize the central area of Summerland. The need for a fenced off-leash park really needs, in my opinion, needs to be closely connected to where people are living in higher density, where they may not have access to yards, where they may not have transportation, where there may be other issues around mobility, and that the feedback overall suggests, given the lack of available land in Summerland, suggests that there is no perfect site that will meet the needs of all of Summerland, and that's why the prioritization of the central area. You will still need to think about and talk about what the purpose is in terms of the vision for what this park needs to be. But I think starting from the perspective of prioritizing the central area will be a good starting place. The mitigation plan for Living Memorial, I believe, needs some attention. The mitigation plan called for renovating Powell softball diamond because the size is appropriate for the baseball diamond number 3 that is proposed to be turned into a dog park. And in order for baseball to be able to play tournaments for that age group, the youngest, the mosquito and the tadpole age groups, Baseball BC requires outfield fencing. Now, that's why it was put into the plan fully fenced so that there would be a clear, I don't know, worst case scenario costing done for Powell with all of the outfield fencing in and the improvements to the infield and the outfield that have been needed for some time to make it safe in order to be able to play on that spot. So that's why it was put in with that amount of detail and at that cost. And the feedback that the Trout Creek community gave was that it would seriously impede the ability of that area to be used as a multi-use park. At least if there's no outfield fencing, when people are not playing baseball, softball, it can be used for many other things. So that's why the mitigation plan to address the removal of diamond number 3 from Living Memorial needs to be reconsidered. There needs to be probably a discussion with baseball around what could meet their needs and potentially even looking at other diamonds to share. So that's why that's my second recommendation. And then the third recommendation is around drawings and cost estimates for 2 additional sites. And the additional site issue was a difficult one to decide what to do about. We did put in the survey, we created the space for people to suggest other sites. We knew that that would be one of the things that people would want to do. They'd be doing anyway. So we thought, well, it makes sense to create the space for them to say what other sites. And as you can see in the full report, the other sites are basically other sites we've already considered in that first phase. So I feel very confident that between Fosbury, Dale Meadows, and Living Memorial, there is no other central space owned by the district that would be even slightly appropriate for an off-leash dog park. So that's why I wanted to put these 2 additional sites in, because I really do believe that these 3 are it. If you're not going to choose one of these 3, then you're looking at another option like a leasing or purchase of land or something like that. So that's one point I wanted to make. The other point I wanted to make around Dale Meadows is I would not have put Dale Meadows back in as a considered site, except for the idea that perhaps there's a way to, rather than removing recreation space, which was the original proposal back in phase 1, was to remove one of the soccer fields, but then that of course would take recreation space away from users. The idea would be to take away parking spots and to reorganize the flow at Dale Meadows, that it could get somewhere between, or around an acre of space that would be very usable and very appropriate and very central. And that's why that's back in as something to think about, although it does have its downsides because there would be costs associated with figuring out the flow. The flow would be a little bit complicated and would require some design considerations. And then the Fosbury Highway easement was added in just because we were looking at all different parts of Summerland that might be large enough, around the area of an acre, that were not being used for something else. And again, with the right design considerations to make sure that, the fences are high enough, that dogs can't get out, that balls can't get onto the highway. It could be designed in such a way that it would be appropriate. So that's why, in addition to Living Memorial, the proposal is, or the recommendation is, to compare Dale Meadows and Fosbury so that you can make a final decision. It felt important to me that you had that in your discussion. So what I did in the report, and I've reproduced it here on the slide, is a really simple table looking at the factors in favor and factors against for those 3 sites. And you can see there's a lot of brackets in the column under Fosbury because there's still some unknowns and there's still some things that would need to be figured out. The other 2 sites, Living Memorial and Dale Meadows, we have a pretty good sense of where the factors are in favor and where the factors are against. And as you can see, again, there is no single perfect site. It really depends on the vision that council has and the priorities that council wants to make in terms of selection. So in terms of next steps, my recommendation is to make sure you can compare adequately Dale Meadows with, compare Living Memorial with Dale Meadows with Fosbury. And that will require, I would suggest, some drawings done by landscape architects who are familiar with design of dog parks, so that you have plans that can be compared. However, of course, in the interest of fiscal responsibility, it may be that you decide that there's one that you prefer. And that is the recommendation, of course, that staff has made, that Lori spoke to when she started this discussion. And that's one of the items that I recommend in my report, and that is choose a single site. And I would recommend, if you're going to choose a single site to compare with Living Memorial, that you would choose the Fosbury Highway easement. And then once you've got that drafted and the information is comparable, and you've got Living Memorial with a revised mitigation plan, then you have your 2 spaces, and you can make an informed decision about what direction you want to go. So I have the remainder of my slides. I've got some footprints. If you need to look at them through your discussion, we can pop them up on the screen for each of those 3 sites. But I think I should just stop there, see if there's any questions for me and any information that I can add as you have your discussion.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, just a moment, please. Leslie, could I have you take down your screen sharing just now, and then I can see everyone that's on the call? And were you just reminding me about Terry Rolston?
Yes, and to give some instruction to press *6 to unmute himself.
Did you hear that, Terry? I guess we'll know in a moment. There we go. Go ahead, Terry. Terry? Are you speaking, Terry? We can't hear you yet.
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
There.
Oh, hello. Go ahead, Terry.
Oh. Okay, thank you. Sorry for the mix-up there. Your worshiping counselor, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I'd like to tell you why I am opposed to changing to Living Memorial Park into a dog park. Living Memorial Park for Summerland's youth was created by the citizens of Summerland and was opened in May 24th, 1948. The Summerland Review reported on May 26, 1948, that the park was made possible through volunteer donations made to the Summerland Memorial Parks Committee, and I quote, "They will be providing by their donations 2 splendid outdoor parks, which will be the joy for their youngsters and future generations of youngsters for years to come. Living Memorial Baseball Park was opened in the memory of those who paid the supreme sacrifice in the 2 world wars. The intention of the community donations was that the youth baseball field would be opened and used in perpetuity for youth baseball in Summerland. Ross McLaughlin was the catcher that played for Summerland on the first game ever played at that field, opening day, May 1948. Ross was truly a remarkable man. He was a war hero, a prisoner of war, and he survived the plane crash on his way home after the war. Sadly, his brother wasn't as lucky. He lost his life in the war. Roger wrote a letter to council in May of 1992 that summarized so well what I'm trying to express. Ross wrote, "I am unalterably opposed to the use of any portion of Memorial Athletic Park for purposes other than the original use intent, a living memorial to all those young Summerland men and women who gave their lives so that the rest of us could enjoy our many freedoms that we enjoy." He goes on to say in his letter, "At the official opening of the athletic park on May 24th, 1948, I spoke on behalf of the Summerland Legion members saying, I believe that a living memorial such as this would be the wish of those men and women who died in the service of their country." I am 100% agree with Ross McLaughlin. I also believe that Living Memorial Park is a very important part of Summerland and that we must use it for the purpose that it was originally intended. Over the past 14 years, I've been a strong advocate for youth sports in Summerland. I've volunteered for many different youth sports organizations. I've been a coach, an umpire, a referee, an executive member for Summerland minor hockey and Summerland baseball, as well as a big supporter and fan of youth sports. In the past 10 years, my wife Colleen and I have both volunteered on the executive of Summerland minor baseball, the #1 users of Living Memorial Park. Throughout the valley, Summerland is known as a great ball community thanks to the hard work of our recreation departments in the past, and for many years, and also thanks to where it all began, Living Memorial Baseball Park was where it all started. This baseball park is part of the proud history of our community and a very important part of our town. Please don't get me wrong. I'm all for a dog park in our community as long as it is not at the expense of the youth of our community and it does not take away from them or does not change the reason that this ballpark was put there in the first place, and that was as a living memorial to our Summerland citizens who lost their lives in the war. Thank you very much for letting me speak. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. I apologize for the mix-up in the technical issues, but we did finally get to hear you, so that's good.
Thank you.
Okay, Council, do you have questions that you'd like to ask in advance of Leslie putting the slides up that show the footprints? Or would you like to see those to help guide your questioning? Councillor Carlson, and then Councillor Van Elfen.
Just one quick questions. The rodeo grounds, I understand, is no longer a recommended site, and I'm just wondering if you can give me a concise reason as to why that is, because I think it's important that we have that said out loud. Thank you.
Yeah, because it's not, doesn't meet the needs of the central area, very simply. In my opinion, prioritizing the central area because that's where the greater density is, greater numbers of dogs are, likely more Summerlanders that don't have access to vehicles and transportation. The prioritizing that geographic location in Summerland means that the rodeo grounds are not appropriate.
Thank you. The same with then Powell Beach, regardless of all other factors. If our conversation is now simply focusing on that select group of Summerlanders, I think that's important that we recognize that as we move forward through this process.
Yeah, exactly. That holds true for Powell as well. And that's why that was one of my first recommendations, is to prioritize the central area, because that will have a large impact on all of your discussion.
Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd just like to say thanks, Leslie. I know this has been a lot of work and truly appreciate it. And I would like to say thank you to Terry Ralston. The clarification has been, it is definitely a question I had in my mind. I know it was a discussion I was having with a fellow councillor about this, the Memorial Baseball Park being donated back in the day, and I didn't know all the history of it, and I truly appreciate it a lot to have that. The question I have is to, through to Lori and through to Leslie, have we looked at the north and south side of Biagioni Avenue, the Fosbury one?
The north and south side.
Yeah, when you cross 97 Highway from the Max Convenience Store, on the right side is Highway right away also. And then you got the left side at the Fosbury at the roundabout there, or at the cul-de-sac.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on the, as you cross from the gas station across on the right-hand side, that area is also right away. It's not large enough on its own to be a space for large and small dogs. So if it was going to be used, it would be a separate space. From a cost effectiveness perspective, it is more cost effective to create one space with a common entrance and then split between small and large dogs. So that doesn't mean it can't be considered in design, but it was not considered for the purposes of this discussion.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to just ask a question, I guess, regarding, and as Leslie mentioned, the competing visions that we're dealing with here. you know, I think when I hear comments like "there's nowhere in Summerland to go for dogs to exercise," that's not entirely true, because you know I have friends in Penticton who come to Sunoka every single day to run their dogs off leash, and they're envious that because they don't have anything like that in Penticton, and they wish they did. So, but I understand that's a different kind of off leash park because it's not fenced, and then when I look at off leash, fenced off leash places like the City Yards in Penticton or Knox Mountain in Kelowna, those certainly aren't 3-acre parcels like the we've been talking about here. So I'm wondering of, you know, what kind, you know, so what it is that we need here in Summerland, and it seems to me that the dog owners want something where they can have it all, but if we can't have it all, then what's the priority in terms of dogs' needs? So we've heard the vision that Leslie has articulated for ideal locations, but my question is, for what's the priority for the type of dog that we're trying to address? What type of needs are we trying to address that we're not able to accommodate? Because we are able to accommodate some off-leash needs at Sunoka in our seasonal off leashes. So, but obviously we're not accommodating all of them. Does that question make sense?
Yeah, so Doug, is that a question for me?
Sure, if you want to take a shot at it.
Well, so one of the things I want to emphasize is that the task that I was asked to do around the survey was not a needs assessment. And the survey was very much on feedback and preference on 3 sites. So it was not designed as a needs assessment tool. That would have actually been a different design. And I think that the questions that you're asking about is very much around needs. So when I speak to needs, I'm not speaking to needs based on the survey per se. I'm speaking about needs based on best practice in the evidence around off-leash dog parks. And in terms of then what the need is, I would argue it's the need for a safe space for dogs that are critically important to the quality of life of their owners. In the case of Summerland, probably older, mobility impaired or challenges. And from that perspective, then that's why the geographic area. From the dog's need perspective, a dog park needs to be large enough for dogs to be able to exercise. And that's why the spaces that have been proposed in terms of the footprints in the background documents was everything between basically, 0.8 of an acre, so starting to get close to an acre, to double that to 1.5 acres. Because looking at all the evidence around off-leash parks and safety for animals, that size between that, 3/4 of an acre to 1.5 acres does provide sufficient space for dogs to be able to be exercised and for it to be safe. Now, clearly, a 3-acre space would be that much better for many reasons. However, I feel confident in saying from a needs perspective, dogs need enough space and they need to be separate, small dogs and large dogs, in order to address the fact that, and this is one of the challenges with Sunoka, in addition to not having a fence, it's very difficult for smaller dog owners to keep their smaller dogs safe. And they will report that they just won't go there because they feel too unsafe or their dogs have had issues and problems. So that's, so now where was I going with that? I don't know. So why don't I just stop there and say that that's why I feel comfortable for meeting a dog's need, that 0.8 of an acre to 1.5 acres is kind of the sweet spot to meet the dog's needs. And that is slightly different than the people needs, if you're following my argument.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Councillor Barkwell, and then Trainer, and then back to Councillor Carlson.
Oh, I was just going to say, if we're going to go on to the footprints now, I do have some questions, but if there's other questions before we look at these footprints, but at some point I do want to discuss like what's on page 91 and 80. Yeah, those footprints. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. We'll just put you on pause for a moment then. Councillor Trainer.
My question is for Leslie. Leslie, would you be able to clarify again what you meant by doing a revised mitigation plan? If we were to go with Snow Avenue, what that mitigation plan would look like? If you could just remind me of that again.
So the mitigation plan right now recommends softball and baseball, and it's baseball, mosquito and tadpole ages, the younger 7 to 11-year-olds, sharing Powell Beach Diamond. The challenge with Powell Beach Diamond is it's not, it's degraded and it's not safe. So the first question is how to bring Powell Beach Diamond up to a standard where we can be confident and comfortable that young people can be playing on it and not be injured. So that's the first question. Okay. And then the next question is, in order to make it as equal as possible for baseball so that they don't lose any of the amenities, that's where the outfield fencing part comes into it. So all the costing covered both of those things: improving the quality of the diamond to make it safe, improving the comfort of the Powell Beach Diamond as well by covering the dugouts, for example. They're uncovered, whereas over at Living Memorial they're covered, and putting in outfield fencing. However, that does impact the multi-use nature of Powell Beach Park for other purposes, having the outfield fencing, and it also increases cost. So the mitigation would need to be adjusted at the very least, even just to take off the outfield fencing and adjust the costs accordingly. And there staff may want to explore sharing a different diamond if there was a determination that the funding that was going to be necessary to bring Powell Beach up to playable standards, then that would need to be explored too. And so those are things that I can't recommend on. It's going to be a prioritizing decision.
Okay, so the mitigation plan then would just be a little bit more detailed and include some options, like you said, the fencing with or without. Is that right?
So the mitigation option, the way it stands, was not acceptable to Powell. It needs to have the outfield fencing.
Right, okay.
However, there's still the decision about investing in Powell to bring that diamond up to quality. And if that money does not get invested to bring it up, then you can't move baseball there. And if you can't move baseball there, then you need to have a discussion of what other diamond they would share with softball.
Okay, and I just have one more quick follow-up. What was the cost estimate you'd given? Was it $5,000 to do this mitigation plan, or?
No, the $5,000 was for the drawings that would be necessary to adequately design either or both of Fosbury and Dale Meadows, because they're going to have specific designs needed to mitigate, balls on highways, as well as the flow at Dale Meadows, because it will now block people from easily getting onto and off of fields, for example. So it needs to be really thoughtful design decisions there. So that's where that, $3,000 to $5,000, depending on how many. The mitigation actually around Powell could be done by staff. In fact, those numbers that were done by staff originally. So that's a different effort.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that.
Councillor Carlson.
My turn. Leslie, through all of the surveys and conversations that you've had with people, both from baseball and from dog parks, I'm wondering, have you seen any synergies, perhaps seasonal synergies? For example, July and August, you're not allowed to have your dog off leash in our parks, but there's a lot of parks where we now have an off-leash bylaw that allows you in the seasons that are not summer. And I'm just wondering if we've, through the survey, given any thought to finding somewhere where dogs can run in that season that they're currently not allowed in all the other parks. Because
yeah. I know, I can see the way your mind's working. Yes. Okay. So the short answer is no. Part of the issue is on playing fields, whether it's soccer or baseball, maintenance of those fields is an investment. And Lori, I'm sure, can speak to the effort and time and money and how actually quite difficult it can be to maintain fields well. And that's one of the reasons why even in the off season, dogs are not invited to be on playing fields because of the damage that can be done. So even and then you have the added challenge of fences. So in the off season, having dogs, for example, at Peach Orchard Beach, which is not a groomed playing field, that's appropriate. But trying to do that on a groomed playing field, that's not recommended at all.
Leslie, could I have you put up the footprint slides that you were speaking of earlier, please?
Sure.
And then Councillor Barkwell, you're next.
Okay, so I have them in this order: Living Memorial, Dale Meadows, Fosbury.
Okay, could we look at page 89, which would be Dale Meadows?
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
so that's Dale Meadows in its entirety. And then that is 2 examples of possible footprints.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I really need to stress that because it's really like the design will need to be developed for an overall flow of the entire park. I felt it was important that people have a sense of what that much space looks like when you're looking at the actual map. So just please keep that in mind.
Okay, so quite a while ago, a year or two ago, I was up at Dale Meadows and wondered why the heck it couldn't be used as a dog park. And what I looked at was the space on the slide in the lower right-hand corner. You see where it has a 10502?
Mm-hmm.
Why the park couldn't be extended down through that area and have a fence on the soccer field and a fence on the ball field side and dogs running between the two uses. Why is you don't want to put a fence on the soccer field, or what? Why couldn't you incorporate that area as well? It looked like a long straight area that the dogs could run back and forth and chase a ball.
Yeah, so that's a really good example where design needs to be considered carefully. So for example, if there were fences that players were running right up against, and immediately on the other side of the fence is where the dogs were, when you have a busy tournament day with lots of people on the playing field and on the baseball diamond, and it's summer, so you've got a lot of dogs in the dog park, even though there's a fence between, it does not create a conducive environment, not for the people who are there with their dogs, and certainly not for the dogs. So when you look at dog park design, you'll often see planting of screenings. So planting of grasses and things that are as high as the fence, so that dogs are not looking at the children that are running up and maybe bouncing off the fence or running along the fence or distracting. And the same for the dogs, and the dogs are not distracting the young children that are right there. So there are some significant challenges during busy periods for doing something like that. However, that needs to be part of the planning. So it sounds like a really simple thing, but there are some challenges. And the other challenge, of course, is then you take away one area for viewing, because people don't view a game from behind the goal or from the outfield. People view games from beside. So then you removed a particular area of viewing. So that's the short answer.
Okay, I can sort of see, I don't know, somebody out there in left field and there's a dog in the dog park. They're still viewing on the sides between the two soccer pitches and between the two ball diamonds there. It looks like, so that part is no problem. Nevertheless, I don't know, it looks like you might want to wiggle that around. The other question is, could we look at slide 91 or page 91, and that's the Fosbury location.
So that's the overall Fosbury site looking directly down on the intersection. North is up, right?
Right.
And then in order to be able to map it out, I had to break it into pieces. So just imagine that these pieces are all joined together, but you can see the area of the 0.25 acre on the uphill, and then the 0.5 acre, and then the 0.2 acre, depending on whether they would all be combined together.
Okay, so that's what I didn't understand. So potentially you could fence it into one large area, or potentially you could fence it into two areas. I don't know which would be better, but you are thinking of incorporating those three pieces then.
Yeah, well, certainly the first two pieces for sure, by making the entrance right at the end of the cul-de-sac. And that common entrance would then split, and small dogs would go towards the uphill, towards the north, and the larger dogs would go towards the south. There are trees in that area, and a lot of that, in discussion with the public works staff, a lot of the underbrush areas could be cleaned out and the trees kept for shade. So there are some things that could be adapted for that particular space.
Okay, thank you. And just a comment, most of you, but not all of you, probably weren't around in the early 90s when there was some development discussions for that living memorial park. And that's what that letter, I think, refers to, that Terry Wilston read. There was a huge outcry from the Legion people. They had like 30 people maybe at a council meeting one time, because they were considering additional uses of that living memorial park. And I don't think, among all the other things, that's something you should be aware of. I think that the Legion members might have something to say about any change there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Barkwell. Could you go back to the, actually, it doesn't matter. Yeah, could you just go back to the Dale Meadows footprint there? And so the one on the left side that shows 1 acre. All of that is parking currently, is that right? Either Leslie or Lori?
It's not all parking.
Okay.
Basically, the long part, so it's an L with a very long bottom on the L. That long bottom at the L that goes towards the C can that's just outside of the line. That park is parking. And you can't really see well, but it's about, from north to south, it's about 2/3 parking and 1/3 grass. So that area is covers parking and grass. Then as you get to the left, the thick part of the L, it's not typically used for parking unless there's a large event like the dog show. And the reason for that is parking right up against that area will block access to the landscape bins. So where they keep sand and gravel and bark mulch and whatever else they store there. And they also have equipment sometimes like tractors and things like that. So yes, while there will quite often be parking up close to that, it's usually the last resort parking because it needs to be accessed by city staff.
Okay, thank you. That leads me to my next question, and that is, and maybe this is a question for Lori. How full does the parking lot, including specifically this area, actually get? Now, Leslie just said that for big events, and I think the example was the dog show, people may be parking there, at least in some areas there. Is that like a once or twice per year kind of thing, or more often than that?
I'll jump in if you want, Leslie. I would say more than that. It would, the full complex would be in use, and that would be all the baseball diamonds and the soccer fields all at once on weekends in the spring, for sure. Tournament weekends through the summer.
Okay, so, and then the dog show presumably will return.
The dog show would be the September long weekend, and yes, it would take up that space.
And that would be okay. So for all of those examples you gave, then they, at least some of the cars would be parking in this proposed area, the 1 acre area. And there's no other place for them to park?
They would have to park in the neighborhoods outside of the park.
Okay.
So if I can just comment, city staff provided a rough layout of the way that it gets set up for the dog park. And they set aside 71 spaces for parking. And of those 71, it's approximately 15 that are in that bottom left diagram that's 1 acre. There's approximately 15 spaces that are lost. So for the dog park show specifically, probably losing 15 of 71.
Okay. So about 20%. Okay, thank you. Other questions, either on the footprint or something else that you've thought of during this time? Councillor Traynor. Actually, maybe I'll ask if there are any more questions on the footprint, if we can ask those now, and then we'll go back to not having the shared screen so that we can see everyone. So, Councillor Barklow, you have another question about the footprint?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead, and then we'll go to you, Councillor Traynor.
On the Dale Meadows location, I don't think the dog park people will complain too much about losing parking for a dog run, since that's their thing. But I was wondering, isn't there a few extra spots that can be, put in the parking? If you use the layout in the location, the lower left, the L-shaped one, is there any additional parking that could be created in the right-hand side of the 0.8 acre location to make up for what you lost over in the 1 acre location?
Well, yes. The short answer is yes. For example, if you look at the rightmost diagram, you will see there's a C-can that's close to the triangle play park where the kids play. It's a white and brown. So that actually gets removed in order to turn that into parking spaces during the dog show. So they do some reconfigurations as necessary in that particular area, specifically remove some barriers and that kind of thing. So I do know that happens there. The area on that same diagram on the right, that's along the baseball fields, that's actually where they tend to set up their tents. Because when you do the event, of course, you need display people, you have people selling things, you have check-in desk, you have, you know, all of the things that make the event run. So that area is typically used during a big event for those sorts of things. So it would be up to the design, and that's why I think that having a landscape architect help with the planning of the design is so important. Because if the space is going to be used for different things, for tournaments, for events like the dog show, it needs to be designed in advance so that you know how you're going to reconfigure as necessary to be as efficient as possible.
So it could be used for parking for ball tournaments and things like that. And then the tents could go there if it's not parking for the dog show people.
But just keep in mind that there are barriers, that like cement barriers, that need to be lifted with proper heavy equipment. So it's not a simple thing. And we need to talk to city staff too about impact on systems like irrigation systems. So there's certain areas I'm sure they would say, please don't drive because you're going to destroy the irrigation system. And I'm not knowledgeable about that particular spot there.
Okay, Councillor Carlson, did you have a question about footprint?
Yeah. So these two options that have just been presented as new information, Fosbury and Dale Meadows, I am wondering, my understanding from listening to the Dog Owners Association, to Mr. Hacking, and from asking him earlier today, whether the Dog Owners Association would be or has had any time to or input to this, or would they be willing to contribute to this conversation any further? I'm wondering if they have been part of any conversation yet. It's coming now to council. Everything up until this point, as far as I can see, has been pushed by the Dog Owners Association, including whether or not they want to admit it, but Snow Avenue has been on their list ever since 2012 as one of their preferred sites. And today we heard that it's the key location, or it meets the key items. It's in the statement they gave us. And so I'm just wondering if we're having this conversation prematurely. Should we be talking? I mean, there's all this pressure right now to make a decision. They're saying make a decision. Well, we made a decision in 2019. And it was their number one choice back in 2012 to do Peach Orchard. And then there was this, and we put it in the budget as a capital plan item for 2020. And there was a big blowback on that one. So we took that decision back. And now the option of Snow Avenue, they're basically putting this out there as our option. So I'm just wondering if have they been consulted on this? Is it even worth talking about it, or are we just going to get a big blowback again by even having this conversation?
So just a short comment on that. No, the addition of the two sites, Fosbury and reconfigured Dale Meadows, I was hoping not to add any additional sites. I was hoping that we'd be in a place where just giving feedback on the three that were in the survey would be sufficient. In the end, I decided that adding these two in is important because that's basically it, in my opinion. Like this is what you're working with in terms of city-owned property. So I felt it was responsible of me to make sure that they were in my report. But I wasn't tasked with doing the full development for these two additional sites, and that wasn't part of the initial plan in terms of doing further consultation. So those things have not happened. So I've not consulted with any stakeholders around either of the two additional sites. And I do know that the Summerland Dog Owners Association did not want any additional sites brought up, and they were not happy that we asked about what additional sites people wanted to recommend in the survey, because they felt that they have the site that is the best site. So
thank you, Leslie. That's very helpful. I appreciate that very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carlson. Leslie, could I ask you to stop screen sharing, and then we'll go to Councillor Traynor.
I should just, I just wanted to make a quick comment before I ask my question. The Parks and Recreation Committee met about this on November 25th, and they struggled just as much as we are. It took them 2.5 hours, and they couldn't come up with a recommendation. Well, they did come up with a recommendation, which was for us to consider Fosbury and Dale Meadows, but they're dealing with the same struggles that we're dealing with right now. So I just thought I would share that. With regard to the Fosbury location, I drove by there today to take a closer look at it, and it's definitely tight, and it's an awkward, it seems to me like it's an awkward location as well. I didn't realize that it's actually right against the highway. Like, I thought there might be a bit of buffer, but it is like right there. And I don't have a dog, but I if I had a dog and I took him there, it would be real. I can imagine it would be really noisy, and then I would also definitely be concerned about safety and throwing balls or anything like that that would end up on the highway. So I don't know about that location. And then also, like, parking, there's no place to park there. And then the other thing is that it would be right up against somebody's house as well. So I don't know how the people living there would feel about that. So I'm not saying no to this location, but I just don't know if it really makes sense. And I guess my question to Leslie is, what do you think about parking? Like, it just doesn't seem like there's any place for people to park there.
Yeah, so the parking would be on Fosbury itself. Most of the parking would be across from the Jehovah's Witness church, starting at that corner. And so there was just an estimate of probably space for 10 people to be parked there at one time. But it absolutely would increase the traffic and flow in front of that house, that single house that's right there. And there's also 2 houses above. So on the hillside above, looking down over, there's 2 houses as well. Likely not going to be impacted so much by the sound, but yes, there is going to be an impact.
If I could just jump in, there may be an opportunity. We haven't had any discussions with the church, but there is a large church parking lot right there. There may be an opportunity to share some parking there when it's not in use, but we haven't had any discussions with that yet.
Okay, I guess, yeah, that location, I don't know, that one doesn't sit well with me, but that's just my thought. I think if we're going to look at another one, I think Dale Meadows seems to make more sense, but I don't know how others feel.
Councillor Barkwell, did you have your hand up again?
Well, I was going to give somebody else a chance to speak before I chime in again.
Well, I don't see any other hands. So thank you for that, but it's your turn again.
Okay. I guess I have to agree to a certain extent with Councillor Traynor. Between those 2 locations, the ballpark looks more attractive. I don't share the highway concerns. I mean, you might put in a taller fence than the 3 or 4 foot, the 4-foot fence that's in the dog park we use in Penticton. And then parking, I'm just basing it on the dog parks I've been to. 10 would be unusual to have 10 people there at the same time. There is enough parking for if you have, people come for 20 minutes, half an hour, and then they go. So there's a turnover, and maybe 3, 4 at the same time. I would even consider both locations. Throw that out for the rest of council. For me, it's obvious the Dog Owners Society, it's far as they're concerned, their attitude seems to be it's the Snow Avenue or nothing. And so you're faced with the situation. Are you going to disrupt the ball players and spend a lot of extra money and then create problems in Troll Creek, or are you going to make the Dog Owners Association, or at least the executive of the Dog Owners Association, unhappy? So it's almost a no-win situation we're here in, but that's what we got to do. So for me, the Snow Avenue is off the table. I just think it's a ball diamond. It's an excellent ball diamond, and there's just no sense in ripping up a ball diamond to make it into a dog park and then spending a bunch of money to turn some other place into a ball diamond that's quite expensive to do, whereas making a dog park is relatively cheap. And for the rest of council, what do you think? Maybe go with both places.
Thank you, Councillor Barklow. Did you have a question as well, though, for either Lori or Leslie? Okay, that's fine. So, you know, perhaps we're at a spot now where we can have a resolution, but I'm looking at Councillor Holmes. You had your hand up?
Yeah, I didn't have any more questions either, Madam Mayor. I was ready for discussion. So.
Okay, so before we get on to discussion, we need something to discuss. So does somebody want to put something on the table? Councillor Holmes, thank you.
So I'll move. Okay, so the report be received for information, and that the Leslie's report be received for information, and that council directs staff to investigate the Fosbury Highway easement location and the Dale Meadows location as outlined in the dog park project report from December 14th. And that staff report back with a comparison between the Fosbury Highway easement and the Dale Meadows location for council consideration and a final decision on a future dog park.
Okay. Councillor Van Elfen, you're seconding the motion? Okay, thank you. Great, thank you. And it's on the floor now. So Councillor Holmes, you'd like to speak first, and then Councillor Trainer.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just, you know, kind of picking up on what Councillor Barkwell was just saying there. I don't think, I think when we sent this back, you know, we kind of had the two churches in mind as the primary locations, and for whatever reasons, they didn't pan out. And I'm extremely reluctant in displacing existing user groups. And so I don't think we should go there. To me, on just initial glance, the Dale Meadows one looks like it would be the best location. It's certainly, I can't see it bothering anybody else, which is important consideration. Though I think the Fosbury one is also worth looking at. The concerns about balls going over the fence onto the highway, or even dogs jumping over the fence on the highway. Well, you just build a higher fence. You know, when you drive through Peachland, they've got a tennis court right on the highway, and I've never been hit by a tennis ball going over that fence driving down the highway. So if tennis balls, and I know tennis balls go over fences quite often, probably more than dogs and dog balls. So I think if you build a fence that high, you wouldn't have any issues with anything going over the fence along the highway. And then when I hear things like, you know, there's no place for RV parking at Fosbury. Well, who are we building this for? Tourists or residents? And I think we're building it for residents. So we shouldn't really worry too much about RV parking. But I think both locations are worth looking into. And, you know, let's just get this right. And one of those two locations should work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Trainer, and then Councillor Van Elfen.
I'm okay right now. I'm just going to hold my comment.
Okay, Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to agree with the two past colleagues that spoke. I think Living Memorial Park is off the table for me personally. I think it was something was done in the past to create something for the children in our community, and I don't want to displace another user group. It's a fastball baseball park. It's designed as such, and I don't want to see that disrupted. The Memorial Park is very, it has a lot of positive aspects to it. I think one is the washroom. Maybe Lori could clarify for me, is that washroom open year round?
Are you Living Memorial washroom?
No, Memorial Park. Dale Meadows. I'm sorry, Dale Meadows.
Dale Meadows is seasonal, so just April through till October.
Thank you. No, I think looking at these two sites, Fosbury and Dale Meadows, I would agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Alphen. Anyone else? Councillor Carlson.
A question, maybe Lori has the answer. When I've been looking, but I haven't found it yet on our website. When we updated our parks bylaw last year, I believe it was, maybe beginning of this year, did we allow for off-leash dogs in and around Dale Meadows in the off season? I don't recall.
So we had recommendations coming from the first consultant's report that Leslie did about updating bylaws and putting up signage throughout the community on what was allowed and what wasn't allowed. When COVID hit, that was one of the projects that got delayed. So that is slated to happen for 2021.
Okay, so there is the potential that there are certain times of the year where other areas, regardless of if a fenced dog park goes in at Dale Meadows, where other parts of Dale Meadows will be authorized for off use. I understand, I mean, you go up to Dale Meadows anytime, any day, and you can count dozens of dogs off leash, but I'm just, there's a method through which we can actually allow that behavior, right? Regardless of fenced dog park. So those who maybe have a bigger dog, they can run or be off leash the same way that they currently are. Not that they're going to be on the playing fields, because we just heard that's not allowed. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Patton, do you have any questions? Or
no, Madam Mayor, no questions. I agree. I think the Living Memorial should be taken off, and I do think that Dale Meadows is probably the most obvious choice. That is going to be in the central location and would probably work well for the dog users. Thank you.
Well, I'll just throw my thoughts out there. Oh, Councillor Barklow, you have your hand up again?
Well, I don't. Well, you go ahead, and then I'll. Just wanted to. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm pleased to hear that the councillors that we've heard from so far are not interested, I guess, in pursuing the Living Memorial site any further, because that's the way I feel too. I think that it should stay for, well, for the reasons that Terry gave us. I think that's, really important. There's a reason why it's called Living Memorial. And I think that council, even when we were talking a couple of weeks ago about recreation fees and charges, we seem to be all in agreement that we need to keep our activities and facilities open as much as possible for the youth of our community. So I think that's another reason why we shouldn't take away that the use for that the park was designed for. One thing that I really like that we're going to be potentially, depending on how this, how we vote, that we're going to be looking at those other two sites. My preference at the Dale Meadows site would be the west one, I guess, the one that is 1.0 acres. I think that's west. Is that right, Councillor Barkwell? I'm not very good with navigation. And for the Fosbury site, and this doesn't need to be in the resolution, but I would like to comment that I would appreciate if, Lori, if you could work with the Jehovah Witness Hall people and find out if there is the possibility of using some of those parking spaces if needed. The last thing I want is for us to have the same issues that we've had, well, even as recently as this year with the trailhead for the Trans-Canada Trail and people parking along the roads there. It became a safety issue on top of you know, a nuisance for the people that live there. So if that's something that you could, great, thank you. So if there, Councillor Trainer, are you ready to jump in now? Go ahead, please.
Okay, so so torn on this. Okay, so I'm gonna vote in support of the first two recommendations. But I'm going to vote against the last one, and that's just because I too have issues changing uses of parks. That I don't like to do that, and I don't like to take away anything from anybody who's currently using a park. But I also know that things do change over time, and that we do have to be open to that. And so I would like to know. I would still like to know more about mitigation. And what we could do at Powell Beach in terms of improving that ball diamond there. So I would like to see Snow Avenue kept on the list, and I know that that's not part of the motion, so I won't be supporting the last one.
Are we ready to, for me to call the question? Oh, Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, actually, before I do that, I wasn't, yeah, I was, what I was going to ask was, could we have the motion read back? Because I thought it was presented as one big motion, not three separate votes. And I was sort of getting the sense that if, for most of us, if the Snow Avenue is off the table, then maybe we shouldn't have staff go to the work of preparing you know, doing any extra work on including that as a comparison, and it should just be about the two remaining locations. And so we should, you know, structure our votes to clarify that. So first of all, what was exactly the motion?
Well, I'll go ahead and I'll ask Karen to read it back. And it's just the third part. Is that correct, Councillor Barkwell?
Yes, and it's,
yes.
Is it the third part or is it the third motion? Yeah.
Madam Mayor, if
yes.
I may, I think there's actually two motions that have been presented. The first one is that the report be received for information, and that the consultant report be received for information.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a second resolution that includes that council directs staff to investigate the Fosbury Highway easement location and the Dale Meadows location as outlined in the report.
Yes.
And that staff report back with a comparison between the Fosbury Highway and the Dale Meadows location for council consideration and a final decision on a future dog park for the district.
Good,
okay,
that's what I remember as well.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies it for me. So Snow Avenue isn't on in the motion. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Trainer.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't realize that. I'm just looking at our report, and I thought they were divided into three. I didn't realize the second two were one. So that was my mistake. I'm sorry about that.
Okay. And Councillor Trainer, you understand that in 3, it's not a comparison between Fosbury and Snow Avenue. Okay, good. Okay. Councillor Holmes, you had your hand up. Was that just to provide clarification? Yes, thank you. Okay. So if there is no further discussion, I will call the question. And we're looking at receiving the 2 reports for information first. Is that right, Karen? Yes. Okay, so I'll call the question on that one. All in favor? And there are none opposed. Okay, thank you. So that's carried. And then the second part, Fosbury, Dale Meadows. Any further discussion on this second part or this second resolution? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that is carries as well with Councillor Traynor opposed. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Lori. Oh, Lori, you're not done yet. Thank you, Leslie. Bye-bye. Okay, so on to 3:45. Okay, on to item 7.2, Parks and Recreation update. I presume it's having to do with COVID.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
That's what it talks about. Okay, thank you.
The purpose of this report is for Council to receive an update on the Parks and Recreation operations and impacts due to the current orders and restrictions issued by the Provincial Health Officer. On December 2nd, the Provincial Health Officer updated the Gathering and Events Order, which had direct impacts to our operations. This included suspension of indoor and outdoor adult team sports. Indoor group high-intensity fitness is prohibited. Indoor group low-intensity fitness is paused until new safety plans are created following the publishing of PHO group fitness guidance. So this is new guidance that is going to be issued. It was supposed to be issued last week, and we're expecting it at the end of today. Once we receive that guidance, we can update our safety plans and resume low-intensity fitness classes. Structured programs and sports for children and youth under 19 may continue as long as the listed conditions are met. And that is following the Via Sport Phase 2 guidelines, which includes maintaining physical distance up from 2 meters to 3 meters and no contact activities. Travel restrictions are in place for sport and no games, tournaments, or competitions. No spectators are allowed at any sport activities. Individuals attending regularly scheduled classes or practices in a recreation center may continue. Continued operations for fitness room, lane swimming, public swim, public skate, and children's swim lessons are still allowed. However, no events like Skate with Santa. On December 7th, the PHO order for events and gatherings was extended through to January 8th, 2021. The prohibition on adults team sports and high intensity group fitness currently does not have an expiry date. On December 10th, the newest version of the order was posted, which included specific clarification that the order does not apply to public pools and public skating rinks when not associated with an event. This is allowing us to keep our doors open to the Aquatic and Fitness Center, as well as the arena for the activities that are permitted. The largest impacts from this order is with our arena. Without the arena adult user groups, we're experiencing a significant drop in our bookings. Activities such as minor hockey, figure skating, school bookings, child and youth hockey skills training sessions, and public skate may continue, as well as junior B STEAM practices with only players under 19 years of age. So that has divided their team up. Any players 19 and older are not allowed to practice, however, 19 and under can go on the ice. Summerland minor hockey took a pause for 1 week to determine if and how they can maintain these new guidelines and update their safety plans with Phase 2 Via Sport. And after further review, they've extended that 1 week pause through to the beginning of January. So they won't be practicing through the month of December. Surplus arena staff are being temporarily redeployed to other district areas, including parks and bylaw. At the Aquatic and Fitness Center, we are continuing to provide pre-registered sessions for the fitness room, lane swimming, public swimming, and our swim lessons. While our group fitness classes, including Aquafit and Recope, which is the aquatic rehabilitation program, are currently on pause. As I mentioned, we can reinstate once we get the guidelines. However, the high intensity group fitness classes, which is about 32% of our fitness classes, we're going to have to keep on hold. And Recope has just advised us that they're going to continue to pause through till January 18th. And this is to allow some time after the Christmas holidays. If there's another spike in COVID cases, they just want to have a 2-week buffer there before they restart. The Curling Club closed their doors on December 3rd, and they won't be reopening until the earliest, the beginning of January, and that is dependent on the restrictions for adult sports. So we are currently striving to keep our recreation facilities open and offering the permitted activities with our COVID-19 protocols in place. However, with the cold and flu season upon us and COVID cases increasing, this could impact our workforce, and we realize that that could happen. And that may have an impact on the ability to keep our spaces open. The reduction in arena and pool bookings and the temporary suspension on fitness classes will have a negative effect on our budget. Staff are trying to reduce expenses where we can. The reduction in revenues are eligible for the COVID-19 Restart Grant funds, which our staff are recommending be used to offset these reductions. So we'll continue to be flexible and we'll adapt based on the PHO directions and the restrictions coming. And that's been on a regular basis lately, and we'll continue to adapt. So that is my report, Madam Mayor. If there's any questions of council, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Lori. Questions, council? Okay, don't see any hands up. So could I ask someone to bring this forward to receive it for information, please? Councillor Holmes and Councillor Carlson, all in favor? Great. Thank you. Okay. Karen, we have quite a few items left on our agenda. It's 10 to 4. But and so we can extend the meeting, of course, but I'm also wondering if there is anything on this afternoon's agenda. Oh, I guess this is the only meeting though, isn't it, for December? Well, I guess we'll just soldier on then. And Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a suggestion. And it's when we read the report that's coming from the landfill in regards to the Ministry of Environment, I would like to table both landfill and have staff arrange a meeting with us, with the Ministry of Environment, because it's quite a scathing letter. And I think that we need to hear firsthand from the Ministry of Environment on their expectations. And I think that we should pursue that and discuss with them as a council, if my colleagues agree.
Okay, so do we need a resolution to defer that item, Karen?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we can certainly defer if you're talking about the item 7.5.
And yeah, 7.4 is something different. So that's correct, is it, Councillor Patton? 7.5?
That's correct, Madam. That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay, good. So you're willing to put forward that resolution then?
I will.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Van Elfen. Any discussion on this? Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to agree with my colleague. If MOE is making noises and threatening us with massive fines and stuff, I'd certainly like to invite them to the council table to have that discussion with us. And so tabling this, I think, is appropriate. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Holmes.
Did we get copies of the letter?
Oh, the letter was not included in the report, I don't believe, as an attachment.
Would it be possible to get copies of the letter?
Yeah, certainly we can circulate that to council, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this? All in favor of deferring? Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you, Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I think that's a good call. Thank you. So it's 5 to 4 now. At this time, could I have someone bring forward, well, if anyone wants to, bring forward an extension of the meeting past 4 o'clock and give us some idea of timing? Anyone?
I'll move. We can stay till 5 o'clock. I'm just going to take a quick 2-minute break in the meantime.
Yes, we are going to take a quick break. Absolutely. So 5 o'clock then, as seconder. Councillor Holmes, all in favor? Thank you. And I'm going to call for a 5-minute break, so we'll resume at 4 o'clock. Thank you.
Forgetting that you